And it just sort of started to hit me that we were on our own. I'm already gonna cry. And I just remember like feeling so ashamed, like, this is not me. I just had a C-section. I'm suddenly not pregnant anymore. This is so confusing. I feel horrible. I can't even sit up. I remember just feeling like such a failure and comparing myself to other moms. They just seemed like it was so easy for them. Hello, you guys. We are here today with a really serious topic, but one that I think is really important to share about. So Katherine and I are going to both individually share with you our experiences with postpartum mental health struggles. There's a lot of ways you can struggle with your mental health postpartum. And for us specifically, like postpartum depression, anxiety, and OCD, I believe were our experiences. There are plenty of other things. And these are also still somewhat of a mystery to professionals. We don't know like exact causes or exact cures of everything. So it is a bit confusing, but we're just gonna tell you our experiences, and I'm just hoping that this will reach the right people. And if you are struggling with this right now, this will really help you. And if you've been through it, that this will be healing for you to hear. Postpartum depression, anxiety, mental health struggles in general, I don't think this is very represented. Well, I know it's not in the media because I didn't see very much of this before I gave birth. So because of that, in our new music video for our song Skin, we portray a little bit of my experience with postpartum depression. So if you're going through that, you may want to check out that video. We will link it in the description. That song is really uplifting. It's deep and dark and it goes there, but then it like takes you out of it. Skin is the song. It will be linked in the description. So I hope that is helpful. There's also a little bit of a shout out to my C-section in there. Shout out to all the C-section moms. There's a little bit in the end of that video as well. Hey guys, I'm Katherine, if you don't know already. And today I'm going to be sharing my experience with postpartum depression, postpartum mental health struggles in general. I'm really glad today to be talking about this because I think this is something that a lot of women experience and it's not talked about very often. I don't know. I really wanted to make this video with Christina because I just want people to feel and know that they're not alone in this. There is hope and there is help out there for you if you are experiencing this. Okay, so my experience, I gave birth to my twin sons 2 years ago almost. So it was in 2021. It's just interesting because my expectations versus reality, I always really wanted to be a mom. I was so excited when I found out that I was pregnant. I was blown away when I found out that I was having twins. I was like, what the heck? But I was just kind of like, you know what? I think I just went in overly confident a little bit because I was like, I love kids. I've always loved kids. I've always babysat. I have 8 younger siblings. Like I have a lot of experience, which being a mom now, I'm like, babysitting is not the same thing as motherhood because babysitting, you go for a few hours and then you come home. Whereas motherhood, it's 24/7. It never ends for years and years. But I just naively kind of thought like it would be easy for me because I love kids and I always wanted to be a mom. And I think too, just seeing motherhood portrayed on social media was very damaging for me personally, because I think a lot of people are just like, oh, I'm just soaking in the newborn snuggles and like just showing motherhood as this blissful experience. I think I just did not have a very accurate experience. I knew that Christina, my sister, had struggled because she had her son like a year before I did. So I knew that was possible. I don't know. Christina had more of a history of depression. I had more of a history of anxiety and OCD. So I didn't know how that was going to manifest for me. I was pregnant with my twins, which was considered a high risk pregnancy. And I ended up having a lot of complications in my birth, which I did a whole video about that on my channel. In a nutshell, I had preeclampsia. I delivered my twins at 36 weeks, which is pretty normal for twins, but it's still a month early. So it's like anything that someone experiences with a newborn of like sleep deprivation, having trouble with breastfeeding. It's like I had an extra month of that with babies that weren't necessarily like ready to come into the world. I had this traumatic birth. I had preeclampsia. I was induced. It was this, I don't even know. I was in the hospital for 2 days, very long and rough birth experience with a lot of trauma. And then I was hospitalized for a week after my birth because I had postpartum preeclampsia, which was a whole other thing. And at the same time, one of my sons was also in the NICU for a week, which was another layer of trauma. So I think going into motherhood, there was a lot of trauma front loaded from my birth experience that I don't think really set me up for a great experience. So I just remember very clearly kind of where this all started for me with the postpartum anxiety, depression, all of it. I remember it was the night that we were being discharged from the hospital, my husband and I. They had offered us, do you guys want to stay an extra night in the NICU to sort of like adjust to, having two babies because one of our babies was in the NICU and the other one was staying with us in our hotel room for the week that I was hospitalized. So I was like, yeah, we'd love it. And they're like, we'll have a nurse come and check on you and you get like a night to kind of like adjust. And I was like, that sounds great. So we go into this room. I remember like no one really checked on us like almost the entire night. We had both of these tiny little preemies. Like one of my sons was like, they lost weight after birth. So one of them was like 4 something pounds and the other one was 5 something pounds. These tiny little babies. And it just sort of started to hit me that we were on our own. No one else was going to take care of them. It was just me and my husband who were like complete newbies at this. And I started having a full-on panic attack. Like I started hyperventilating. I felt like the world was going to end. And because I've been having blood pressure problems all week, I thought something was wrong with my health. So I said to my husband, like, I think I need to go to the ER. I think something's really wrong with me. Like, I think my blood pressure is rising again. I was just so scared that something was going to happen to me because I was like, now I have to take care of these babies. And like, I can't let something happen to me because I need to be around to take care of them. My husband, in his wisdom and experience also with me of just like my struggles with anxiety in the past, was like, I don't think you're sick. I think you're just having a panic attack. And so he knew that, which was really helpful. And he was able to calm me down. We went home with our twins. It was blissful. I had friends in town and they like put all these like a banner up at our house and made a fresh meal for us and cleaned everything. Like it was so nice because we rushed to the hospital, like had this sort of emergency kind of delivery because of the preeclampsia. And I remember feeling this sense of like bliss, like, okay, we're home, we're out of a hospital. It's going to be great. And I remember that night, everyone left and it was just me and my husband and both the babies were screaming. And we were like, we need to shower. Like, okay, you go up. And like, it just sort of struck me again, like, oh my gosh, there's literally 2 premature newborns in this house. How are we supposed to do anything? That was sort of where it began for me. So raising newborn twins was the most difficult, overwhelming thing I've ever done. I really was in survival mode for, I would say, at least 6 months, if not the first year. And my mental health was in a really, really bad state. I would say probably for, I don't know, maybe even the first full year, 6 months to a year. The nights were the hardest for me. I remember like my twins, they would be waking up throughout the night. We were so sleep deprived. We were exhausted. I also was really, really worried for a while about my health and about especially the health of my son who was in the NICU. And I just remember like just going and checking on him and making sure he was breathing all the time, feeling really, really on edge, being terrified that like one of them was going to suffocate or we would drop them. Like I was even scared to go up and down the stairs in our house with the babies because they were just so small and fragile. I would not lift them by them, like both of them at the same time by myself because I was so afraid of something happening to them. I just was in this like state of really high anxiety constantly. I remember I went to go get a massage and every part of my body that she like massaged felt bruised. Like it was just like I was holding so much in every muscle in my body because I was so scared the whole time. It just reached this really low point for me where I think the twins were, 3 or 4 months old. So they were still quite young. And you also add in a month of them being premature. It was this horrible time where it was winter. It was really cold out. My twins both got really sick at the same time. My husband is a personal trainer. So there are certain times where he'll go in at he'll wake up at 4 a.m. and go open up the gym for work. He was leaving. And I remember screaming at him, which is not like me at all. Like I'm usually more calm, I guess. I've never raised my voice at my husband before. And I just remember feeling so ashamed, this is not me. I know this is not really me talking, but I just screamed at him. I was like, how could you leave me here with these 2 babies? They were both sick. I was by myself. It was the middle of the night and I was begging him not to go to work because not even that I was afraid that something bad was going to happen. It was just more this feeling of I can't handle this on my own. I just need some help. And I did have help. I had babysitters that would come sometimes. My mom would come. I did have some help, but every time that someone was going to leave, I just felt so overwhelmed. I can't do this on my own. I remember just feeling such a failure and comparing myself to other moms that felt they just seemed it was so easy for them. And I was this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And I just feel I'm constantly failing and I'm just doing what I can to keep my sons alive and myself alive, take care of their basic needs. And that's all I could do. And I was so triggered by other moms doing these extra things that seemed to work on developmental milestones or something with their kids. I remember thinking that's a good mom, but I'm just over here trying to survive. And that's truly how I felt. And I actually wrote a poem about my postpartum experience when I was kind of in the thick of it. And I wanted to share this because I feel some other moms might relate to this. I see you. I see you there. Milk-stained t-shirt, tired eyes, messy hair. purple lightning bolts on your thighs, soft, wrinkled, stretched out belly. I see you there. In the early morning, rocking and soothing. In the late morning, washing and folding laundry. In the midday, yawning, eyes struggling to stay awake. In the evening, searching for patience in between high-pitched screaming and painful fussing. And I see you there the most. Late at night, feeding and shushing. This is when you feel the most alone. A loneliness that pierces. This is when time stops and slows. You look down at this helpless little face beneath you. You are his source of nourishment, and even in your exhaustion and delirium, you can't stop. You have to provide. Your body aches, muscles sore. You love this little face so much it hurts. Your body and soul pouring out every drop until you feel utterly spent and empty. Your head is dizzy and scattered. The days mixed up. You can't remember things like makeup and calendar events and lunches and coffee dates. You used to be someone, but that seems so long ago. You used to plan your days freely. Now every hour is spent, carefully accounted for what feels like the next forever. When will you feel free again? When will you sleep? When will you stop crying? It's all so heavy. The heaviest part being the sadness that weighs on you because all you want is to feel the magic and the joy of this season. That's what all the photographs and advertisements told you. Motherhood, baby snuggles, and newborn bliss. But you feel so lost in all of this. Guilty, ungrateful, overwhelmed, exhausted. Stretched thin, about to break. Who am I in all of this? And when will I feel like me again? Please, someone see me. Please, someone tell me that I'm not alone. So going through all of that, I knew that I was struggling. I've struggled with my mental health my entire life, but I've been in therapy for over 10 years, specifically for anxiety and OCD. I knew that my current therapist, I was trying to tell her about postpartum and it wasn't really working. So what was the most helpful for me was I looked for a therapist, a new therapist who specifically specialized in postpartum. And I found a therapist who had that specialty and was also like a mom of young kids, and she was really in the trenches, same as me. I really feel like talking to her changed my life. She helped me go through my birth trauma and just sort of like process some of that. The other thing that I felt helpful for in my healing was talking to other moms who related. Talking to other moms who were like, yeah, this is really hard. I'm struggling too. I feel like I'm in survival mode. Like I kind of had to honestly distance myself from people that just seemed like everything was perfect and they didn't have any struggles, like, which I know everyone has struggles, but I think there is this sort of expectation in motherhood, like it should come easy. It should be just this, I don't know, blissful thing. And I really want to say to anyone who's listening to this, like if you are in my shoes, like where I was in those really dark times, please just reach out for help. And don't make yourself go through it alone because you're not alone. I will say there is hope on the other side. You will sleep. You will have time to yourself. It does get so much easier. This is what I tell every new mom. It gets easier every single month. Month 5 was easier for me than month 4. Month 6 was easier than month 5. My twins are 20 months old now. I like truly can say from the bottom of my heart, I'm loving it. I love being their mom. I love my twins. This was never about not loving them enough, which I think moms that struggle with this, like they sometimes question like if they love their kids because they don't feel that connection in certain ways. And I know for me, like I was so overwhelmed just trying to feed them and trying to like take care of everything that it was hard to feel just like bonded at times. I do really feel like I have a really good bond with both my sons and I just love my life with them now as toddler. I just love the toddler stage so much more than the newborn stage was. And we have so much fun together and it's a lot better on the other side. If you are struggling in motherhood, you're not alone. It's not easy. It's really hard. There's so many circumstances that can make it hard for people and they're so valid. So I just want to validate you in that. Hopefully this reaches someone because I just really feel like there's someone out there that needs to hear this. And I hope that you find this video and know that you're not alone. And I'm sending you all my love. Yeah, and I'm excited for you guys to hear Christina's story as well. Okay, so I had my son Barrett, I already feel like I'm gonna cry, in 2020, which was a really rough year, as we all know. That was a really rough time to give birth. There was so much going on at that time. There was so much of my personal life going on at the time. It was just so rough. And I had a miscarriage. I'm already gonna cry. Like 6 weeks before I got pregnant with Barrett also. So there was just a lot going on. So, you know, I have 9 younger siblings. I know a lot about babies, children in general, and I felt pretty prepared in a lot of ways. So I was like looking at the current stuff and like seeing influencers talk about their postpartum experiences. So I think I had kind of like a skewed view of motherhood going into having Barrett. Luckily, I knew all about postpartum depression. I had been briefed on it by different medical professionals going into this, so that was good. Even though I knew postpartum depression existed, I hadn't seen it like represented really. I can't think of anywhere I'd seen it in like a video or a movie or a show, definitely not a music video. So when we did our new song Skin, I mentioned it in the beginning of the video, it was really important to me to put part of my postpartum depression experience in that video because we really need representation. Like we really need to see this. And I had a feeling that I was going to experience it because already having a history of depression makes it much more likely, which I've had a long history with depression, anxiety, and mental health stuff. So my husband and I were both like on the lookout for it. It all started from a bad place. It didn't start well at all. The beginning of Barrett coming into this world was so dramatic. I had a placental abruption. It's where your placenta just detaches and you just start hemorrhaging basically. I was bleeding so much. It was so scary. And we rushed to the hospital. I immediately got an emergency C-section and I had been planning this whole birth and I didn't even get to labor. Like none of it happened. It started with me waking up in the hospital. They had to put me under. My husband being like, oh, here's a picture of the baby. He's not in here. He's in the NICU. And I was just so confused. I'm like, what just happened? I just had a C-section. I'm suddenly not pregnant anymore. This is so confusing. I feel horrible. I can't even sit up. I had no idea what it would feel like after that. The first night, it was so rough. I didn't hold him. I just like stared. I didn't sleep the whole night. So I stared the whole night at my phone, looking at this baby. And so we got into holding him, trying to calm him. And immediately it wasn't like you put this baby down and he sleeps. It was like he only sleeps when you're holding him. That's not what I thought. I thought you put your baby down and they sleep. So that was already really challenging and that definitely contributed to this. Breastfeeding was one of the first stressful things. I didn't realize I didn't really know postpartum anxiety was a thing really, I guess. So I started to get so much anxiety about breastfeeding. I woke up in the middle of the night to eat for weeks. Eating once, sometimes even twice in the middle of the night for weeks because I was so obsessively anxious about the fact that I could lose my supply at any moment. I feel like people talked about that a lot. You're going to lose your supply. I never had any issues with it. That never happened, but I was stressed about that all the time. Then I was anxious all the time about people dropping him. My mom, who has raised 11 kids, I always thought she was going to drop him when I would give him. I'm like, oh my gosh, the whole time, I'm like smiling. I feel like I looked pretty calm on the outside. On the inside, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to drop him. 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 And I could not stop picturing all these intrusive thoughts. I couldn't stop picturing her dropping him, anyone dropping him, like anyone who asked to hold him. I was like, oh my gosh. And I thought that anyone holding him also was going to hate it more than anything. Like this was the worst experience of their life because it was so stressful. It was so like distorted. I wanted to get a babysitter a couple months in and even that experience, I was like, no babysitter will ever take this job on. I was like, they're going to think this is the most stressful, most horrible thing ever, and they're never going to watch him. It made no sense because when he finally had his first experience with a babysitter, she was like, oh my gosh, I loved this. I love him so much, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how is that real? So as the sleep deprivation just got worse and worse, he had a really hard time sleeping and he has a very spirited temperament, which I also had as well. So it's just more of a high needs baby is what they call it. They just need more and they just kind of are just more intense than average. I mean, I kind of expected that in a way because of myself, but I just didn't know quite what that would be like. So I started to feel this incredible guilt. I remember my mom coming over and it was like not even an hour. I went to go take a bath and I was just panicking that I was in the bathtub alone, that I didn't have my baby. He was hardly without me. It was like a half hour maybe. And I was just feeling so guilty. Like, I can't believe I'm doing this. You can't just leave your baby alone. It's like my mom was holding him. Like, that's his grandma. Like, what? As the weeks went on, he started to just not improve with sleep. And I started to get more and more sleep deprived and just feel worse and worse. My thoughts just started to get darker and darker. I remember like hearing about postpartum depression and thinking more about like, I guess like psychosis. I don't know what it was. Postpartum rage and things like wanting to like hurt your baby and like being so mad at them. I didn't feel like that. I just felt so hopeless. I felt like a shell of a person. Like I had already died basically. It was like, I'm just walking around just dead every day. And I just kept wondering, like, will I ever feel okay again? And then I started to believe, no, you will not ever feel okay again. My thoughts turned really dark and really like antagonizing me. It was like, you will never feel okay again. He will never sleep again. You will never sleep again. How on earth would you handle another child? Like, you can never do that. You want this big family? How are you going to do that? You can't even handle this one. It was really painful to have that going on in my head. And I just started to have all these nights where I'm just sitting on the ball. Bouncing him in the ball was like the only thing that would calm him. And I'd just be in my room, bouncing him in the dark and just crying and crying, like, please go to sleep. Please. If you have a baby who struggles with sleep, you know what I mean. And I would be yelling at God physically. I don't know if I've really ever done that before. I was just yelling like, why, God, why are you doing this? Like, please help me. I was like desperately yelling out for help. Like, please, I'm begging you. And I would just like beg and plead with God. Like, is there anything you could do? Like, please show me the answer. Like, how can I change this? Everything was so hopeless. I think a lot of it revolved around the sleep because it's just like, I'm never going to get any sleep again. And in hindsight, it's like, I should have gotten a lot more help. This isn't because people weren't helping me or like offering. It's because I couldn't ask for or receive help without like incredible amounts of guilt. Like, looking back, it's like, you could have gotten help, but I'm telling you, like, it's like I couldn't have. Like, the guilt of getting help with things or like speaking up about things was like worse in almost. But it wouldn't have been worse though. I felt like it was worse than the pain that I was feeling. I would do things like be like obsessively checking the baby monitor or like going in to check that, like make sure he's fine obsessively, just obsessing over all these different things like over and over and over and over and over. And that sucks when it's like they've slept a little bit this time. What did I do? How do I recreate those exact same things? And you like obsess over the details. And then it's like you're creeping away and you hear your baby make a sound and you're like your whole world comes crashing down. And it's like so much anger and hopelessness. I started absolutely dreading the nighttime. When the sun would start to go down, I would be like overcome with this insane dread. It was the worst feeling, like, oh no, it's nighttime. Oh no. In the morning, I'd be like, you made it through another night when it was like 6, 7 a.m. Then I'd also be like, I don't want to get up for another day. Then I had this horrible insomnia for months. I could not sleep because when he would wake up, he wouldn't just wake up like, wah, wah. It was like blood-curdling scream. Not every baby does that. I know that because my siblings' children and my second child, Tristan, my daughter, she does not do that. So that like jolt was just like, oh my gosh, it was so unsettling. After months of that, I would just wake up all the time in the middle of the night. And then if he would ever wake up just like once, it would just be like this huge, like stressful thing. And I would start to think, oh my gosh, he's still never going to sleep now because he woke up one time. Now we're going to go back. I'm going to get back to that place. And I remember the peak of this. I think it was like 9 months. We had this snowstorm, which like never happens here. And we couldn't really, it was like a week long of like not really being able to go anywhere. And so I was really isolated. So I was in our house pretty much alone with him. And I was just like, I am so deeply depressed. I just kept thinking like, I can't die though, because I can't leave my baby. Like, he's going to be wondering where I am for the rest of his life. So that was like what kept me going. Like, I can't leave him without a mom. The big thing I was convinced of, and I've been to this place before, and it's been like almost like a different message each time. But this time the message that was so convincing to me was, your life will never get better. It will always be this painful and this hopeless. And there's absolutely no way out of the pain besides dying. There's no way you will ever feel like happy and like peaceful and hopeful again. You will never feel like that again. And I was believing that so many days in a row. I really believed that. I do have to say, if you're going through that right now, first of all, with my second child, it was just like night and day, so different. I don't feel like that anymore. And I got out of that and I eventually didn't feel like that anymore. That was so not true. It felt so true at the time though. Like that really gets you. That voice in those moments, like you really believe it, but it's really not reality. I'm telling you, if you're thinking that, you are not in reality. If that thought ever crosses your mind, you are never in reality when you have that thought. That's what I've learned over the years. So I was trying to tell myself that. So I started therapy way early in this process, but I just didn't find the right therapist. So it didn't help that much in the beginning. I saw like a postpartum coach lady. I saw a therapist. I saw another like coach type person. Then when I got to that really dark place, I was like, okay, I have to look again and find another therapist. I have to do this. I was considering everything like, do I need to go on medication? Do I need to blah, 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 whatever. So I was like, let's start with therapy. Let's see what she thinks. So I started with this new therapist and she actually officially then diagnosed with OCD, which I knew I had that my whole life, but I just never got diagnosed for whatever reason. We went through all the stuff and I saw her like every week or every other week. And that pulled me out of it. And I got back to not living in a black hole. And I made like health changes as well. I went to the doctor and I got all these tests and we found out like my health was not in the best place from like my cortisol levels were like in the toilet at that point, which is really painful. It's like you wake up in the morning and normally you feel like something to get you out of bed. But now it's like I'd wake up and like nothing would like kick in. It was just like dragging my lifeless body out of the bed every morning. So I made some health changes with like exercise, getting outside, getting sunlight, nutritional things, and then therapy all the time. It turned around and it did get better. Looking back at it, I think the things that contributed were the fact that I didn't ask for help enough. I didn't get help enough. That definitely would have been a game changer if I could have gotten that place mentally, which I did this the second time around, got a lot more help, and it was a game changer. My mental health to start with was not in the best place because of like all these things that were going on in my life at the time that were just so traumatic, to be honest. The traumatic birth experience, and I didn't know that it was a traumatic birth experience. I really realized a year later when Lisa had a C-section and I burst into tears when I heard it. And I was just crying and crying. And then I was like having all these flashbacks. And then I was like, it was really traumatic. I need to process that. It does bring me to tears, but I can talk about it now without like, so I've worked through it a lot, but there's still more to work through, as we can see. My expectations were so different. Like I didn't realize that not every baby will just go in the stroller and sit in their car seat, not scream bloody murder at you in the car seat, in the stroller, in their bed, whatever the heck. And it doesn't mean that you suck and you ruined everything because your baby is like that, because they have different temperaments. Duh. But I just didn't realize how difficult a baby could be if they weren't that. Now I know. And now I feel bad because I was like that for my mom. So I feel really bad. I mean, it wasn't my fault, but you know what I mean. The sleep deprivation, I think, is a huge contributing factor. And lastly, my miscarriage. Losing a baby previously, you have this thought in the back of your mind, I think, all the time that you could lose this baby because you've lost one. You try to like hold on extra tight, I think. And I mean, I burst into tears in the hospital after I gave birth thinking about my miscarriage. So I think those things all contributed. I guess my message is to you guys, to everyone watching who's going through this right now. I know there are people watching this who are going through this, and you're looking for videos on this, and you want to watch someone experiencing this because you want to feel like you're not alone and you're not just like a piece of trash who just screwed everything up, a giant mistake on this planet, because you're not. I just want to say to you, don't believe all those negative things. Like, I'm telling you, they're not true. I know it's hard to hear that, but they are absolutely not true. And you do really need to get help. You got to keep trying. If your therapist is not working, your doctor, whatever the heck is going on, you got to find someone else. You got to keep reaching out. You cannot give up on yourself. Reach out to people. Keep trying. Maybe you need to take a day, a week, whatever, and just like stop for a second and breathe. But you can't stop fighting for yourself. Like, you have to keep trying. And sometimes it's like you're the only one fighting because people don't realize what you're going through. You cannot give up on yourself. You gotta keep trying. You are the one in the situation who knows what's going on, so you need to advocate for yourself and reach out. And things change. Your baby is not gonna be a baby forever. They're not gonna be a toddler forever. These are all stages that do come to an end, and it feels like forever in the moment, but they do come to an end. Your life right now, it will not be like this forever. It's just impossible. So many things in your life are going to change, and you don't know like what's going to be that day where things change. Like, it literally could be tomorrow, because there was a point where I didn't know that it was tomorrow, and it was tomorrow. Like, that day really came where the first shift happened, and then the next shift, and then the next shift, and then before you know it, you're like, I mean, I have all these evenings where I'm like, wow, my life is so beautiful and fulfilling. Like, that was like a blissful day. I have said that so many times, not every day. No. There are plenty of dumpster fire days, so don't forget that. But there's so many days I have a baby and a toddler. I'm like, that was blissful. And I don't have like the easiest, most chill temperament children in the world. Like, I don't have that. So if it's possible for me, it's possible for you. I hope this video was really helpful for you guys. I just want to remind you to please reach out and get help, and don't stop until you get the help that you need. There are so many resources. We will put some in the description, but Google, find some resources, reach out. Thank you guys for watching. And just a reminder, if you want to check out that video for our song Skin, and check out that song Skin, check that out. And I hope that is really helpful to you guys.
You are more than skin, you are more than bone, you are more than a world grown harsh and cold.
You are heart and soul, you are love made whole, you are more than the world will ever know.
You are more than hurt, you are seen and known, you are more than what's under your clothes, and no one can take what's under your skin, what's under your skin.
To not feel hopeless in life regarding romantic relationships.
It's gonna change, and you gotta embrace where you are.